Hello, welcome to panel number 12 of 13. So you just dodged being the unlucky ones. We're a panel of the people who are up for the award for Best Short Film at NZ Webfest. You're almost all here. We've got one person, Joe Murdy, whose short Planet 13 is in the mix. He's not able to be with us because he's on a shoot, but we're certainly not going to begrudge anybody the opportunity to earn money, given the way that this year has been for lots and lots of people in the industry. But he doesn't get the opportunity to talk, so that's down to you lot. And we're going to kick off by doing a run round. I'll ask you to do the 2 cent tour or the elevator pitch and tell us about your short and what it is, and we'll get digging a bit deeper into the hows and whys later. But yeah, give us the introduction. Adam, you were first here, so you kick us off.
Yeah, sweet. So my name is Adam Schultz. I'm the writer and director and editor and a lot of other hats on Traffic, which the log line for which is I suppose a man on a bridge who's ready to end it all has his crisis suddenly upended by a cheery petitioner who's trying to get him to sign a petition to fix Auckland's traffic. And it's kind of it's just a film about what it feels like living in a world that's so commodified and competitive, where it feels like everyone is trying to sell you something, and so many people are too numb to ever be able to actually relate or connect with the people around them. Yeah, that's me.
All right, brilliant. India.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko India taku ingoa, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Rangi Taurare no Te Raroa Hoki. First of all, just thanks for having me, and it's awesome to be a part of this really cool kaupapa. What is Hukia? Our logline is a woman speeds to her estranged mother's deathbed and her daughter rides shotgun, but what it really is quite a tender, I hope, tribute to those very tricky mother-daughter relationships. So that's Hukia.
All right, thank you. Thomas.
Hey, good everybody. My name's Thomas Judson. I wrote and directed a film called Crazy Love, which is basically it's a love story about a crisis of faith and young people in the not so big city of Wellington. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's really lovely. I watched all of your films yesterday, and it was such a good mix. Everyone here has done such amazing stuff. It's really, yeah, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you. Jade.
Kia ora koutou, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Mahanga, Ngāti Maniapoto me Ngāti Pukenga, ko Jade Hudson tōku ingoa, no Tamaki Makaurau hau. Kia ora everyone, I'm Jade and I'm the writer, director and co-producer of Constance. Our short film is a no dialogue ghost story, and it is a very simple premise about a very lonely young soul who basically is looking to make contact with a guest at her house.
Right, thank you. And Alice.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm Alice. I'm the co-producer and writer of Basket. And Basket is all about a woman who refuses to leave her laundry because she's decided she needs to solve a very important mystery in there. And she gets very locked in on that little world. Yeah, and super happy to be here with you all. What an honor.
Thank you. All right. So one thing I'm getting from all of those descriptions really is that you've made productions with small casts, which is smart when you don't have an enormous amount of money and you don't necessarily have a lot of time and huge resources to throw at it. So in terms of the casting, was where I wanted to go next. Was how easy was it really in terms of you obviously had clear ideas of what these people were going to be doing and what they needed to bring. So given that you couldn't write large checks, what were your criteria for finding the people who were going to be able to do justice to your stories? Jade, do you want to kick us off there?
Sure. So our cast, well, the entire film actually was concepted around me wanting to work again with some people that I had gone to South Seas Film School with. So that was kind of the reason we made the film. And Constance was played by Caitlin McTavish. She was actually a classmate of mine and she was really into acting. So I just thought she'd be great and I really wanted to work with her. And then the male role we actually found through another crew member. So yeah, it was our project was a bit of a crafty one. It wasn't normally I kind of concept a story and try and bring that out, whereas this was sort of reverse engineered. I really wanted to make something and then I looked at what I had and kind of went, oh yeah, let's go with that. And it kind of went from there. And I might talk a bit more about that with other questions. But
All right. So you wrote the role specifically for Caitlin?
sort of. I had a script that was actually a different genre. And then I thought I wanted to try something a bit different, a little more atmospheric and maybe more emotional. And yeah, it was originally a comedy. And I decided to go complete 180, kind of get into, why would a ghost and what would a ghost be wanting if I changed the POV from the, person being haunted to the actual ghost as the protagonist. So yeah, and I thought Caitlin just worked really beautifully for that role, for what it became anyway.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thomas.
Yeah, so yeah, casting was a big part of this film. I always love casting. It's one of my favorite parts of actually making the film, to be honest, is getting all the actors in. Everyone gives their own interpretation of what you've written. And you've always inherently got one idea in your head for each character, and then you see 30 other ideas. And it's such a privilege to be able to given all those. It's funny, our lead actor, Adam Slocum, he couldn't make it in for an audition and he didn't have time to do a self-tape. So he ended up just sending me a video of him doing a completely random scene from the movie About Time. It had nothing to do with the sides we'd given him or anything. It was completely separate. And I watched this and just thought, yeah, well that's him. He's brilliant. And it was so interesting that he was able to take the risk there and actually not audition what we really wanted him to audition, do something completely else. And that worked wonderfully. Yeah. And we found all the cast that same way. It was the film basically had no budget, so actors working for free, volunteering, and yeah. I mean, there's kind of a cliche that casting is about 95% of directing. And that was very much taught to me in this film, well and truly. There were a couple of scenes we shot, one in particular. We were doing a sequence in the film that we kind of called the walk and talk. It's kind of something that could be out of a Richard Linklater movie, sort of like a Before Sunrise kind of thing. Two characters walking down the street at night talking. And we're shooting on this busy Wellington street, and there's traffic and there's noise, and we're on a long lens on a gimbal walking backwards. And there's just no bandwidth whatsoever to be getting into the weeds of a scene and over directing it at all. And it was so reassuring. We did take one, and both Adam and Molly Lucia, the other actor in the scene, they just they had it. They knew the characters, they knew the subtext, they had all these choices they could make. And it was so wonderful knowing that on that day, all I've got to say to them is, okay, a little slower here, a little quicker here, because they would cast right and they had it, and that was it. It was really wonderful.
Great. All right. Alice.
Yeah, I'm actually an actor first and foremost, so that's how I entered the industry, and then I got into writing a few years ago. So I'm actually the lead character in Basket, which was a very easy casting process because I just checked in upstairs and said yes, enthusiastically. But yeah, that was sort of part of why we wanted to put it on. Me and my co-producer, who's also a wonderful, wonderful actor, and he plays my brother in the film. We're looking for something where we could both show off producing and writing skills, but actually also get to have a go at doing the acting. And that certainly helped with we had very basically no budget, but that made that a very easy conversation because we were sort of both happy to do that and invested in doing it and wearing all the hats. So yeah, it was a very easy and streamlined process for us because we were kind of already in place.
Okay, thank you. Adam.
Yeah, I don't think I wrote the script with my lead in mind, but as soon as it was, getting to a point where I was like, all right, let's shoot this thing, I pretty much immediately knew that I wanted my friend Rama to play the lead. I had met him not that long before, and we had talked a bit about his acting, and he has such a look and such an energy about him that I seem to just write all sorts of different characters that I think Rama would be perfect for. So he was supernatural. He just kind of fell into my lap, and I think we did do a quick audition, just to kind of walk through the scene and make sure everything felt right. And yeah, he was the only one auditioned because immediately I was like, "Yep, nailed it." For the petitioner role, I did a few auditions on that. That was kind of a tricky one because I needed someone who could do that kind of perfect balance between being like really likable and friendly, but then also having like an edge underneath that of like almost an uncanny valley. Like, is this dude being real with me? What's happening here? So that was a little trickier to find. But I, again, pretty early in the process, I had cut a web series. Actually, Wellness. It was in
Yeah.
New Zealand Web Fest a few years ago. And our buddy Mitch on that had he was such a funny, like lovable guy, but you could tell he didn't really give a shit about any of the other characters in the scenes. So he also just kind of clicked for me, and we again had auditioned a few other people, but as soon as he came in, it was just locked in. So I guess we got pretty lucky in that I already had people in my network who
Hmm.
I knew would want to make something cool, and just have fun, and also just were perfect for the characters I'd already written. So yeah, we got lucky.
All right. India.
Well, we were extremely lucky to have the support of quite an established producer. So her name held quite a lot of weight, Angela Cudd. And as we were having our initial chats, we kind of thought maybe we should just ask, these crazy people like really established actors, because we got Midiama Smith, who's an Aotearoa screen legend, and we thought, why don't we just ask? She might want to do it, and thankfully she resonated with the script, and she decided to come on board. So that was really really awesome. But we also had a lot of fun going through the self tapes for our daughter character Cheyenne Herewini Little, and it was just an awesome experience um, to see how people presented that character, and she just got it straight away. We saw so many different versions of that character, and as soon as I opened her video I was like, oh wow, she totally understands just from this one scene exactly what we were after. So that was awesome. We were very lucky with our casting. Yeah.
Right. Very good. So, how much was an audience in your minds when you were at the stage of putting it together? I don't know, on each of your journeys, what was the point at which it became something you were playing with to something that you were committed to really wanting to make, as opposed to one of those ideas that you set aside either to percolate for a while or never to emerge back into the daylight again. But sort of, how did that work for you, Thomas?
Yeah, well, I always think about audience far too late in the process, really. I mean, with this film, I had sort of the genesis of it. I had kind of at least so the story, then I had the feeling of it very, very much in my head, and I had the beginnings of that on paper. And I spent probably about a year tinkering with the script, and then by the time I finished that, I just thought I just have to do this now. I have to make it now. And I didn't really think about what the appeal of it would be until it was pretty much done, really, which is a terrible thing to do always. But just felt very compelled to make it. Uh, felt like I had to do it. And then almost once it was finished, was figuring out, right, how do we actually make this into something that people want to see, you know? But just had to really commit to the first idea of it. I think that was the journey for me.
All right, thanks. Alice.
Yeah, I wrote this script like a few years back now, and I sort of think I always knew I really wanted to do it, but I just wasn't quite sure when I'd have the crew and the team and people who were happy to kind of make it happen. And then I think the part where we went, yeah, let's do this, let's film this, is when I sort of had this little production team together who were all really keen to do something creative, all really feeling like they hadn't had a lot on their plates lately and wanted to get back out there and make something. So I feel like we sort of made it for the crew and the cast and everyone who was, chomping at the bit to put some work together. And I just happened to have this script that I knew I really wanted to get out there, and that I sort of posited it to the group, and they all went, "Yeah, we really love this. Let's do it." So we sort of leapt in that way first, and then once we'd sort of made it, I went, actually, we should do something with this. We should get this out there. We should show it to people because we've put in the effort, and we're really happy with how it turned out. So I guess I'd sort of thought about it initially, and then it became very much about the making, and then we sort of went back to audience land, I guess, once we had it in hand and knew kind of what it was and how it felt, I guess.
Okay, thanks. India.
I'm kind of always thinking about audience as soon as my sister wrote the film, and as we're kind of reading it, we're both kind of like, is this something that needs to be made or seen or heard? Is anyone going to resonate with this? And I think in the end, we're just kind of like, I hope it does. And that's why I just really like seeing everyone's opinions and hoping that people watch it, good or bad. I just love to hear what people think about it and why, and parts of the film that I'm like, oh, this meant this to you and it meant that to me, and either way, I just love that about it. So I guess not so much in terms of like statistics or which festival or where, but more so just how people see the film is kind of how I looked at it. Hopefully that's the part yeah.
Thank you. Adam.
Yeah, I this was an interesting one for me because I feel like so I'm predominantly an editor by trade. Like that's what I went to school for, and that's what I've spent most of my time in film really trying to hone in on. Um, and part of the reason that writing and directing never felt like it was for me was just because I would get too in my own head about, well, what do I have to say? Like, I'm just some white dude. Like, I don't have anything interesting to say. There's lots of other people with more interesting stories than me, and I would get very in my head about it. And maybe that's all true, but on this one, I think I was just sort of like, you know what? I just have this need to make something, and I just decided I don't care and just powered through. And that feels very, very good to finally like realize something that I think I've deep down wanted to do for a very long time, but have always kind of forced myself into the back seat because of those anxieties. It's also a funny one because in terms of thinking about the audience, well, again, I think I didn't think about the audience, and that's the only reason I was able to make it because if I get too in my head about that, I won't make anything. Um, but the reason this one I think was the first script that I wrote that I was able to really push through and just be like, no, I'm going to make it, is because it started out really small. Like I originally wrote the script basically as a test for a Super 8 camera. Well, that's a 16 millimeter camera, but oh, actually, it was for a 16 mil. But anyway, I wanted to just shoot something simple just to see how my cameras were working and try and just make something that looked beautiful predominantly. And that's the reason the film has so little dialogue, is because none of these are crystal synced, none of the ones I have. So it's tricky to, you kind of have to work around that when you want to shoot 16 mil on these old cameras. Um, and then, yeah, just in writing the script and starting to put it together, I realized like, oh, actually, I think this might be something a little bit more special than just like basically a demo reel for my 16 mil camera. So it sort of evolved very naturally, but I think the fact that it started small and just basically something for me is the reason I was able to push through and make it. So I didn't think of the audience at all, and that's probably not good, but I think I might have to do that and just make things for me if I want to keep making things.
Okay, Jade.
Hello. Yeah, similarly to Alice, I feel that Yeah, it was really for the cast and crew initially, and I think I'm still trying to figure out who the audience for this film is. It's very different to anything that I had written or directed before. And yeah, I was very much, not that the film is experimental, but it was an experiment for me making this. And I kind of challenged myself to the no dialogue thing. And yeah, we shot it at the house that I live in with my husband. He was the editor. Like, it was a very homegrown type of project. So yeah, I guess I'm still trying to figure out who the audience is for this one. Normally, it is one of my first sort of priorities within my writing, but like I said, this is quite a different project to what I would normally write. So I was thinking just very visually with this one. Yeah.
All right. Well, you should probably never ever show this video to New Zealand Air or the Film Commission if you're hoping to get money out of them, because they are both rightfully very keen on audiences being part of the thinking from an earlier stage than when it's finished. But in terms of money, let's stay with the money or the absence of the money. But there's never enough. It doesn't matter what you're making. There's never enough to do justice to the dream that you've got. So let's ignore that and say what other than money was a challenge that you had to kind of face and take on to make this film what you wanted it to be. I know time's are ticking. I know that Alice and Thomas have to jump out fairly soon. So I'll put you two up first. So Thomas, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, it's actually a really good question. It's funny. I don't know how long ago you guys all shot your films, but we shot Crazy Love about a year and a half ago now. And when we were doing it, it was a 3-day shoot, and each day had its own catastrophes and apocalyptic problems that you got to deal with. At the time, it felt like the end of the world all the time. Now, a year and a half later, it doesn't seem like it was that bad, you know? So the money was difficult, and time was difficult, and the weather was a challenge, and locations, and we broke things, and all of those things happen. That happen on every day of every shoot anyone's ever done. Um, but in the grand scheme of things, we got okay. We were all right. We made it through without no one lost any limbs. And at the end of the day, that's sort of to me mean it was all right.
Yeah, always a good day when all of you comes home. It's Alice.
I think ours was probably the location was our biggest thing we had to sort of try and make work because in a lot of ways the film is wonderfully simplistic, which made lots of things really easy rather, but it's entirely set in a laundry, which is great to have one location, but we then suddenly very quickly when we started scouting laundries realized most laundries are very, very small. So trying to find a laundry we could use where we could get all of the gear and camera crew and things in was probably our trickiest thing. We sort of had to work out, which we ended up filming in a friend's garage that we then art dressed to be a laundry. And then it was all pretty uphill, smooth sailing from there. But yes, that was probably our biggest one we had to try and work out. And I probably am going to have to jump off very shortly. So just thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. And I will disappear in the background.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and good luck. All right. India.
Oh, well, we were kind of crazy because we shot it in a vehicle. So who does that when you have no money and no time? But we decided to. This was probably we just loved the story and we really wanted to make it and didn't want to have to wait um, till more money mysteriously dropped from the sky. So we shot in a vehicle, which was very, very difficult. And I think another challenge for us was I wish we had more time to work. We had such a cool composer, Liam, and I just wish we had more time in that space and more money in that space. And that's something as like a creative, I'd really like to explore further in the future is that sort of relationship with the composer and creating that soundscape. Yeah.
Okay. Jade.
Yeah. We didn't have any huge glaring issues or difficulties, mainly because like I said, I wrote it to be quite a self-contained little piece. We shot it in our home, but I guess that did have its own challenges. So yeah, living in a hot set is not the most comfortable way to be living, but it was only over a weekend, so not too bad. And I guess, yeah, just self-producing is not something I recommend if you are also directing. So definitely in my future projects, I will be trying to avoid wearing that hat. Yeah, but otherwise, other than a few reschedules and things like that, it was pretty good. We got lucky. Yeah.
Right. I wanted to ask you particularly about at what point did the script become dialogue free?
Completely dialogue free was in the edit. However, in the script, there was only one line of dialogue, and I just decided to remove it because the protagonist was a ghost. And so I felt that thematically, the story is about loneliness, and even in the company of others, I guess, is kind of the core sort of theme there. So yeah, I think silence is obviously a huge part of that. So yeah, it just made sense for it to be a yeah, no dialogue film.
Okay, thank you. Adam.
Yeah, I have two. The first one's quick. I just desperately wanted to shoot as much of it as possible in purple hour, because so many of our frames were up on this bridge are dominated by sky. I really wanted to get those purpley clouds, but that's like 45 minutes. So yeah, shout out to my DP Clara and Daye. She killed it. We were super quick, and it was still beautiful. The bigger challenge for me was actually editing, as counterintuitive as that may seem, seeing as I'm an editor. Um, but I have always been a strong proponent of editors shouldn't cut their own, or directors shouldn't cut their own films, because as an editor, I've seen so many directors struggle with killing their babies and struggle to see the project honestly. So your job as the editor really is to come in as kind of the objective arbiter and the conduit for the audience, right? Like you come in and you don't have all that baggage of writing this scene and really loving it, or really loving this particular take, or knowing how much went into that one dolly shot that you really loved. Um, you don't have any of that baggage, so you're able to just see everything objectively. And on this film, I really learned that that is 100% true. Maybe not for every director. Sean Baker can somehow edit his own films brilliantly. I don't know how. But I struggled a lot just to be able to see things clearly. And as an editor, you can get in this headspace where you're really feeling what you're cutting, and it's just obvious where that cut could go because you feel it, right? And that takes a level of intimacy with the footage that when you have all this other baggage, I think is almost impossible to get as a director. Because I was just always hyper analyzing, like, oh, I'm not sure if I liked, like, I directed him weird there, or like, oh, there's a tiny little thing here that I should have noticed, or blah blah blah. So it was a pain to edit, which is funny because I'm an editor, but yeah, a big learning experience for sure.
I remember a panel discussion. Script to Screen used to run these sessions called the Writers' Room in Auckland every month, years and years ago now. But they did one with David Coulson, who's Nicky Caro's editor, and Kushla Dillon. They were talking about the process of editing from an editor's perspective, and Kushla said we always do a first pass, which is exactly what the script says, so that the director knows they're wrong. And it's which
That's
kind
great.
of felt like a pretty smart place to start, really, because if sometimes you have to actually see that something's not working in order to let go of it and go somewhere better, which is
I'm gonna steal that quote. That's lovely.
Well, you should certainly credit Kushner with it because it's not me because it's
Yes, sir.
hers. It's, we're heading towards the close now. In terms of where you would like to see this film go, not in terms of, we want it to be accepted to Sundance or whatever, but in terms of your own movement forward, what do you hope it will do for you in terms of either giving you something as a takeaway that you will be able to use on different projects, or it'll open a door to somebody that you wanted to get a meeting with, or whatever. What sort of boxes it ticks for you in terms of career development? Can I throw you under the bus first, India?
Sure thing. I think, well, first of all, it was kind of proving this, I think, project in particular. We kind of did two short films in the same year, but it was almost like proving to ourselves that we could create something in whatever way that looked like, and something that was complete and whole. And I think wherever I decide to go into the future, probably, hopefully, maybe make another short film with a slightly higher budget. Who knows? But it's kind of, yeah, I guess a starting point in that way for people to see mine and my sister's kind of style, which is quiet and possibly boring, but I guess while Lemons and Hokiara aren't, they're very, very different, but they also have a lot of similarities. So I guess it's just, yeah, sort of a catalogue of what some sort of future potential, maybe. That's kind of how I see it.
Okay, Thomas.
Yeah, I feel a very similar way. I think. I mean, this film was really, it was good practice, and it was proving to myself and to ourselves that we could do the things we wanted to do. And we ended up with a film that, in some parts, works really well, and in some parts doesn't work so well, and it's not perfect. And there's lots of lessons we've learned from it. But it kind of works as like almost as a proof of concept for the next things. I mean, the last few shorts I've done have all been in the same sort of spiritual area. They're all about the same kinds of things, really. And now I'm co-writing a feature film. Actually, it's the next big thing with my co-producer on this film, Ron Aitken. It's funny you mentioned Sean Baker before, Adam. The early scrappy Sean Baker movies are very much sort of the what we're trying to do. I mean, make a feature film on a tiny budget in the city and do the same thing. And really, this film was a way of us kind of thinking, okay, we've shot this 16-minute film in 3 days with $2,000 and all these things. We got to do that 6 times, and you've got a 90-minute feature, And so it's part of the evolution of getting that next project off the ground and making sure that's going to be as good as it can be, basically. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jade.
Yes. Well, as I've mentioned before, this project was quite different, I guess, in terms of what I might consider my voice. Yeah, I was really trying something new with this. So I guess off this project in particular, I would hope that it kind of conveys some of my versatility, and perhaps monetarily that could go into directing other people's work, or working in ads, or just doing stuff that's kind of a bit different from the projects that I would ordinarily make. Yeah.
Okay, great. Adam.
Yeah, I think mine's pretty similar to what Thomas and India, and I guess Jade kind of said it to a degree as well. I think it was a great learning experience, and it going harkening back to what I said earlier about it kind of being me getting over that hump of being like, you know what, I don't care, I'm just gonna make my own stuff. I feel like it's almost already sort of fulfilled its purpose to me, which is just to practice and prove to myself like, oh no, I feel pretty comfortable doing this. Again, it's just like Thomas said, it's not perfect. But if it were perfect, I wouldn't have learned anything. So yeah, I don't necessarily need it to go anywhere from here. I think it's just given me the confidence to go on and make and write more things because I've always been writing and having all these ideas, but I've never had the confidence to go through and make them because I'm like, oh, I get caught up in what other people will think of it and all of that nonsense. So yeah, it's been great for that. And if it goes anywhere else or opens some doors for me, but I think it's more just opened a door in my own head that will allow the next film to hopefully actually get made instead of just sit in final draft as a draft for a decade.
Yeah, I think it's always good to learn from stuff, and as long as you sort of learn something and then move on and then learn something else, it's when you bash your head against the same wall every time and have to learn or relearn the same thing every time that it's pretty good evidence that you're not making progress. But so yeah, make different mistakes. It's always a good way forward, I think. Thanks very much for talking and sharing, and thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to share your work with our audiences. It's a pleasure and a privilege, and it's very much what we're about with NZ Webfest. And good luck to all of you for the awards. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be
Awesome.
included.
Thank you so much.